My partner called me a project while I was recovering from an accident, so I disappeared with my medical equipment. When my insurance settlement came through, he suddenly remembered his devotion. Let me tell you something. You never really know someone until the chips are down. Like, for real down. I found this out the hard way after my accident last year. One minute, I'm cruising down Highway 41 in my trusty Honda Civic, singing along to Taylor Swift like nobody's business, and the next, some dude in a jacked-up F-150 is running a red light and T-boning my ride at full speed. Woke up 3 days later at Memorial Hospital with 2 broken legs, a busted collarbone, and enough bruising to make me look like a human-sized plum. The doctors kept using words like extensive physical therapy and long recovery road, but all I could think about was how my boyfriend Derek was holding up with all this. Derek and I had been together for 4 years. We'd moved in together, just 6 months before the accident, splitting rent on this cute little 2-bedroom near the park. He'd always been the fun guy, the one organizing weekend trips to Vegas or impromptu tailgates for the Packers game. When we started dating, I was drawn to his energy, how he could light up a room just by walking in. Babe, don't worry about a thing, he said that first day in the hospital, squeezing my hand and brushing hair from my face. I'm not going anywhere. We'll get through this together. And for a while, I believed him. I mean, why wouldn't I? The dude showed up with flowers from Trader Joe's twice a week, rearranged our apartment to fit my new wheelchair, and even learned how to help me with my shower routine without making it weird. The first month wasn't so bad. I was still on the heavy duty, pain meds, sleeping most of the day, and honestly just grateful to be alive. Derek would come home from his job at the marketing firm, heat up some Stauffer's lasagna, and we'd watch reruns of The Office until I dozed off. He'd kiss my forehead and whisper, "One day at a time, babe." By month 3, though, things started changing. The novelty of playing nurse was wearing off. Derek started working late more often. His boys would text, asking where he was at their weekly poker game when he'd told me he was pulling an all-nighter at the office. Little things, you know? I tried not to sweat it. Recovery was taking everything out of me. The physical therapy, sessions 3 times a week at Midwest Rehab Center were kicking my butt. Just trying to bend my knee 15 degrees had me sweating like I'd run a marathon. My sister Jenny was a godsend during this time. She lived about 20 minutes away and would drop by whenever Derek was busy. She'd bring actual home-cooked meals, not just DoorDash, and would sit with me doing puzzle books or watching trashy reality TV without complaining. "You sure you're good with Derek?" she asked one evening while helping me stretch. "He seems distant." "He's just tired," I defended him, wincing as she helped rotate my ankle. "It's a lot to deal with." Was all she said, but her face said plenty. By month 6, I could hobble around with a walker, and the doctors were optimistic about me eventually getting back to normal-ish. The insurance company was still figuring out my settlement. The truck driver had been texting and driving, and his company was looking at some serious liability. That Saturday night, Derek had his college buddies over while I rested in our bedroom. They were watching the Lakers game, crushing Bud Lights, and getting louder with each quarter. I was actually glad for the noise. It felt normal, like our life before. I was dozing off when I heard my name. Pushing the button on my bed to raise myself up a bit, I strained to listen through our thin apartment walls. "Must be hard, man," one of the guys was saying. "Playing nurse 24/7? "You have no idea, bro," Derek's voice carried clearly. "It's like dating a project. So much work for nothing. I mean, we haven't even hooked up in months, and who knows if she'll ever be back to normal." The silence that followed felt like a punch to the gut. Worse than the accident, honestly. "That's rough," another voice chimed in. "You gonna stick it out?" "What choice do I have? Can't exactly dump the girl while she's learning to walk again. Besides, that insurance check's gonna be fat. Might as well see it through, you know?" I lay there, tears streaming silently down my face as they launched into a debate about the Lakers' chances at the championship. The medical equipment around my bed, the walker, the compression machine, the pill organizers, suddenly looked different. Like chains keeping me tied to someone who saw me as nothing but a burden. And a meal ticket. That night, I pretended to be asleep when Derek finally stumbled in, reeking of beer and Doritos. He didn't even try to be quiet as he crashed around the room before passing out next to me, snoring within seconds. I didn't sleep a wink. Update. Y'all, I can't believe the support in these comments. To answer the most common question, yes, I heard him, crystal clear through those apartment walls. Gotta love that 1970s construction, right? And no, there was no misunderstanding his intent. When someone tells their bros you're so much work for nothing, while cracking open their 5th Bud Light, they're showing their true colors. But here's what I'm wrestling with now. Do I confront him directly, or execute the exit plan forming in my mind? What would you do if you discovered your partner was just waiting to cash in on your pain? The next morning, while Derek was sleeping, off his hangover, I called Jenny. "I need to ask you something huge," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "And I need you not to freak out." 30 minutes later, we had a plan. Jenny would come over while Derek was at work on Monday, and we'd move all my medical equipment to her place. She had a first-floor guest room that would work perfectly. The timing was tight. I needed to be out before Derek realized what was happening, but with enough of my stuff that I wouldn't need to come back. "You sure about this?" Jenny asked. "You could just confront him." "And say what?" Hey, I heard you call me a project and admit you're only sticking around for my insurance money? I laughed, but it came out more like a sob. No thanks. I'd rather just disappear. That Sunday was one of the hardest days of my life, pretending everything was normal while Derek lounged around watching Red Zone, bringing me the occasional glass of water like he deserved a medal. I smiled and thanked him each time, bile rising in my throat. Love you, he said absently as he headed out Monday morning, dropping a quick peck on my forehead. Text if you need anything. Love you too, I lied, watching the door close behind him. Jenny arrived 20 minutes later with her husband Mike and their pickup truck. Moving was painful. I was still months away from being fully mobile, but the adrenaline helped. We packed efficiently. My clothes, personal items, medical, equipment, and the few things that were definitively mine. I left behind anything we'd bought together or that might complicate things legally. Before leaving, I propped a note against the TV. Derek, I heard everything Saturday night. I'm not a project, and you're not stuck with me. Don't try to find me. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the apartment lease. Your ex short, simple, no drama. Just like ripping off a Band-Aid. Jenny's place felt like paradise compared to the emotional minefield I'd been living in. Her guest room had windows overlooking a small garden, and she'd set it up with everything I might need within reach. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. Your phone's blowing up, Jenny said around 6 p.m., nodding at my iPhone vibrating across the coffee table. Derek, of course. First confused texts. Babe, where are you? Then panicked calls. Then the anger. What the hell? You can't just leave? You need me. And finally, when I didn't respond to any of it. This is about Saturday, isn't it? You don't understand. I was just venting. I blocked his number. The next few weeks were surprisingly peaceful. My physical therapy continued at a new facility. No sense risking running into Derek at my old one. Jenny and Mike never made me feel like a burden, and having some distance from Derek showed me just how much his attitude had been affecting my recovery. Without the constant undercurrent of resentment, I actually started making better progress. My lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Maria, who specialized in personal injury cases, handled everything beautifully. She arranged for the remainder of my belongings to be collected from the apartment and negotiated my removal from the lease without penalty, citing emotional distress. And about your settlement, she said during one of our meetings, glasses perched on the end of her nose as she reviewed some paperwork. The trucking company's insurance has finally agreed to our terms. It's substantial. She slid a document across the table and I actually gasped when I saw the number. It was life-changing money, enough to cover all my medical expenses, compensate for lost wages, and still leave me with a significant cushion. We can have this finalized within the month, Maria continued, which means you should start thinking about your next steps. Will you stay with your sister? I'm not sure, I admitted. I haven't really thought beyond getting through each day. But the settlement changed everything. Suddenly, I had options. I could afford my own accessible apartment. I could take time off work to focus on my recovery. I could even put a down payment on a house once I was back on my feet, literally. The news must have traveled fast because within days of the settlement being finalized, Derek found a way back into my life. Through mutual friends, social media, even showing up at Jenny's doorstep. She didn't let him in. He's like a cockroach, Jenny muttered after turning him away for the third time. Maybe we should get an order of protection. He's harmless, I said, though I wasn't entirely sure. Just persistent. The text messages started coming from new numbers, burners probably, each one more desperate than the last. Babe, I was just having a bad day. You know I love you. Please come home. It's not the same without you. I'm falling apart without you. I need you. And then, the one that really got me. I know about the settlement. We could do so much with that money. I've been looking at houses in Maple Grove, that neighborhood you always loved. Update. Okay, so that escalated quickly. After blocking Derek, I was finally making real progress both physically and emotionally at Jenny's place. Then the settlement came through. Let's just say it was enough zeros to make your eyes pop. And suddenly my phone's blowing up with texts from random numbers. This man really went out and bought burner phones. The latest text has me shook, though. He mentioned buying a house in my dream neighborhood with my settlement money. Like, who does that? I'm sitting here wondering if I should respond just to shut this down or keep ghosting him. And for those asking, yes, I'm much safer now. But his persistence is next-level creepy. Is this normal ex behavior, or am I dealing with something more concerning? I wish I could say I was strong enough to ignore him completely, but curiosity got the better of me. One night, after Jenny and Mike had gone to bed, I texted back one of his numbers. How did you find out about the settlement? The response was immediate. Maria's assistant and my cousin work at the same gym. Doesn't matter. What matters is us. I made one stupid comment. Don't throw away 4 years over that. I stared at the screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard. All the things I wanted to say crowded my mind. That it wasn't just one comment, that he'd revealed his true feelings. That I deserved better than someone who saw me as an investment rather than a partner. Instead, I simply wrote, there is no us anymore. Please stop contacting me. His response was a barrage of messages, alternating between pleading and planning our future together, as if my text had never existed. I turned off my phone and went to bed. The next morning, Jenny was waiting with coffee and a concerned expression. So, he came by again last night, around 2 a.m. My stomach dropped. What happened? Mike heard him trying to look through windows. He went out and threatened to call the cops. Derek was not sober. That was the final straw. That afternoon, we filed for a restraining order, which was granted temporarily until the hearing. It felt extreme, but also necessary. Derek had crossed too many lines. With legal protection in place, I finally felt secure enough to start planning my future in earnest. My recovery was going well. I was using just a cane now, and the doctors were optimistic about a full recovery. Within another 6 months, the settlement money was safely invested, with just enough accessible for immediate needs. Through a friend of Maria's, I found a lovely garden-level apartment in a secure building across town. It had wider doorways, for the days when my mobility was limited, no stairs, and a small patio where I could sit in the sunshine. It wasn't in Maple Grove. Derek had tainted that dream, but it was mine. Moving day felt symbolic. A year after the accident that had changed everything, I was finally standing, mostly, on my own 2 feet again. Jenny helped me arrange furniture and hang pictures, making the sterile apartment feel like home. You know what's wild? I said as we collapsed onto my new IKEA couch, sweaty and exhausted. If not for that accident, I might still be with Derek, completely oblivious to who he really is. Silver linings, Jenny agreed, clinking her Topo Chico against mine. Though I'd have preferred you find out without the whole almost dying thing. We laughed, and it felt good. Genuine. Like the first real laugh I'd had in a year. The hearing for the permanent restraining order was scheduled for the following week. I'd been dreading seeing Derek in court, but when the day came, he didn't show. The judge granted the order by default, and just like that, Derek was legally required to stay away from me. He's probably moved on to his next project, Jenny said afterward as we celebrated with lunch at Panera. Once he realized the money wasn't accessible to him, probably, I agreed, though something felt unfinished. That something showed up 3 days later in the form of an expensive-looking envelope delivered to my new address, which Derek shouldn't have known. Inside was a handwritten letter and a small velvet box. The letter was 5 pages of Derek's sprawling handwriting, detailing how lost he'd been after my departure, how he'd realized what truly mattered, how the accident had been hard on him too. The final paragraph read, I know. You got a restraining order, and I'll respect that. But I want you to have this ring as a promise that whenever you're ready, I'll be waiting. What we had was real. One bad night doesn't erase 4 years of love. The velvet box contained an engagement ring that must have cost at least 3 months' salary, if not more. Knowing Derek, it was probably on credit. I sat on my patio, turning the ring over in my fingers, watching the diamond catch the afternoon light. A year ago, this would have been everything I wanted. Now, it just felt empty. A transaction. A way for him to access the comfortable future my settlement could provide. Pulling out my phone, I opened my rarely used Facebook account and navigated to Derek's profile. His latest post was a bathroom selfie captioned, "Working on myself. Some people might not see my worth yet, but they will." 52 sympathetic comments underneath. Poor Derek, abandoned by his ungrateful girlfriend after he'd sacrificed so much to care for her. I laughed out loud, startling a bird from my little patio garden. The Derek PR machine was in full swing, and somehow, sitting there in my own space, with my recovery progressing and my future secure, I couldn't even be angry anymore. Just relieved. Relieved that I'd escaped before legally binding myself to someone who saw me as nothing more than a meal ticket. The next day, I mailed the ring back to his parents' address with a short note. No thanks. I'd rather be a project on my own terms. 2 weeks later, I started a blog chronicling my recovery journey and the lessons I'd learned about self-worth along the way. It was meant to be therapeutic, just for me, but somehow it caught on. Other survivors of accidents, illnesses, and bad relationships started following, commenting, sharing their own stories. One comment in particular caught my eye. When my husband called my cancer treatment inconvenient, I knew we were done. Thanks for helping me feel less alone. That's when it hit me. My experience wasn't unique. So many people discovered their partner's true nature during their most vulnerable moments. And maybe by sharing my story, I could help others recognize the red flags I'd missed. 6 months later, my blog had over 50,000 followers. I'd been invited to speak at a conference for trauma survivors, and most importantly, I was walking unassisted, had started a part-time job at a nonprofit, and was dating again, cautiously but optimistically. Derek had eventually moved on. According to mutual friends, he was now dating a girl whose father owned a successful construction company. Some patterns never change. As for me, I was no longer a project. I was a work in progress, on my own terms, in my own time, with people who valued me for exactly who I was, broken parts and all. Update. I've been blown away by how this post blew up. For everyone asking, yes, I really did mail the ring back. His mom later told mutual friends she always knew I wasn't right for him, LOL. And no, I never touched a penny of the settlement money for anything he could benefit from. The wildest part? My recovery blog now has over 50K followers, and I'm speaking at a survivor conference next month. Some days I still need my cane after long walks, but I'm dating this physical therapist now, not mine, don't worry, who says my progress is incredible. Derek? Last I heard, he's dating the daughter of some construction magnate. Shocker. The real question I'm left with is this. If it hadn't been for that F-150 running the red light, would I have ever seen Derek's true colors? When did you realize someone was using your vulnerability against you?